Okay, I'm continuing on Deuteronomy 28, and I'm starting with verse 58 because the video went off right in the middle of me reading it.
And this is part 2 of day 75, and
Yes.
welcome, and we're glad you joined us.
And if you weren't watching part 1, I'm Linda and this is Eric.
Okay.
And
She said that too.
Yeah. So, 58. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of the law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name. And then it has in big capital letters, the Lord thy God. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed even greater. Isn't that funny? Thy plagues wonderful? I don't consider plagues wonderful.
Oh, yeah, that's
And the plagues of thy seed even greater plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast was after all, and thou wast, I can't even say these words, wast after all.
I think you better get an
they
NIV.
shall cleave unto thee. Verse 61. You know, Egypt must have been really sickly, because he keeps referring to them as the curses of Egypt, like the diseases of Egypt. They must have been really sickly people. Anyways, verse 61.
The Lord will also bring on you every kind of sickness and disaster not recorded in this book of the law, until you are destroyed. You who were as numerous as the stars in the sky will be left but few in number, because you did not obey the Lord your God. Just as it pleased the Lord to make you prosper and increase in number, so it will please him to ruin and destroy you. You will be uprooted from the land you are entering to possess.
Verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall thy soul or thy foot have rest. For the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart. That'd be like a heart murmur, right? And a failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and thou shalt have none assurance of thy life. Verse 67.
And you know all that we've just been reading what the Lord said to do if they disobeyed him. And that's exactly what's happened to the people of Israel, the Jews.
Scattered and
They were scattered all over the world, and they've been abused and murdered by nations, and end up in a small remnant compared to what they would have been.
sad.
In the morning you will say, if only it were evening, and in evening, if only it were morning, because of the terror that will fill your hearts, and the sights that your eyes will see. The Lord will send you back in ships to Egypt on a journey I said you should never make again. There you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female, slaves, but no one will buy you. That's the end of chapter 28, and now we're going to read 29.
Oh, are we reading 29? That was a long chapter.
These are the terms of the covenant the Lord commanded Moses to make with the Israelites in Moab, in addition to the covenants he had made with them in Horeb. Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, verse 2, go ahead.
And Moses called unto all Israel and said unto them, Ye have seen all that the Lord did before thy eyes in the land of Egypt, unto Pharaoh, and unto all his servants, and unto all his land, the great temptations which thine eyes have seen, the signs and those great miracles. Yet the Lord hath not given you a heart to perceive, and eyes to see, or ears to hear unto this day. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes are not vexed, you're old upon you, and thy shoe is not waxen old upon thy foot. Ye have not eaten bread, neither have ye drank wine or strong drink, that ye might know that I am the Lord your God. And when ye came into this place, Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us into battle, and we smote them. And we took their land, and gave it for an inheritance unto the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to half of the tribe of Manasseh. One more. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in that which you do. Verse 10.
All of you are standing today in the presence of the Lord your God. Your leaders and chief men, your elders and officials, and all the other men of Israel, together with your children and your wives, and the aliens living in your camps, who chop your wood and carry your water. You are standing here in order to enter into a covenant with the Lord your God, a covenant the Lord is making with you this day, and sealing with an oath, to confirm you this day as his people, that he may be your God, as he promised you, and as he swore to your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am making this covenant with its oath, not only with you, who are standing here with us today in the presence of the Lord our God, but also with those who are not here today. Verse 16.
Verse 16. We know how we have dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations which ye passed by. And ye have seen their abominations and their idols, wood, stone, silver, gold, which were among them. Lest there should be among you man, or woman, or family, or tribe, whose heart turns away from this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood. And it came to pass, when he heard the words of this curse, that he blessed himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of mine heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. The Lord will not spare him, but then the anger of the Lord and his jealousy shall smoke against this man, and all the curses that are written in this book shall lie upon him, and the Lord shall blot out his name from under heaven. Verse 21.
The Lord will single him out from all the tribes of Israel for disaster, according to all the curses of the covenant written in this book of the law. Your children who follow you in later generations and foreigners who come from distant lands will see the calamities that have fallen on the land and the diseases with which the Lord has afflicted it. The whole land will be a burning waste of salt and sulfur, nothing planted, nothing sprouting, no vegetation growing on it. It will be like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admar and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in fierce anger. All the nations will ask, why has the Lord done this to this land? Why this fierce burning anger? Verse 25.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading ahead. Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord, God, their Father, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. That's important enough for me to say again when I stop speaking. It beeped 10 times. Then when people ask how come these people are being cursed, it's because he said, the Lord of their father, they forsook the covenant of the Lord their Father, which he made with them when he brought them out from the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods, and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land, to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger, and in wrath, and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is to this day. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us, and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. So amazing, sad, amazing.
That's reading of the word in the Old Testament.
So now we're turning to Mark.
Yeah, Mark chapter 14, verse 53.
Yeah.
And Jesus is before the Sanhedrin. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple, and in 3 days will build another, not made by man. Yet even then their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again the high priest asked him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," he said. "And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." Verse 63.
Then the high priest rent his clothes and said, "What need we any further witness? Ye have heard the blaspheme. What thinketh ye?" And they all commanded him to be guilty of death.
No, condemned.
And mine says guilty of death.
Condemned, not condemned.
Condemned. Oh, right. You're right. Condemned him to be guilty of death. And some began to spit on him and to cover his face and to buffet him and to say unto him, "Prophesy." And the servants did strike him with the palms of their hands. Verse 66.
Peter disowns Jesus. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. "You also are with that Nazarene Jesus," she said. But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about," he said, and went out into the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again he denied it. After a little while, those standing near said to Peter, "Surely you are one of them. You are a Galilean." He began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. And that's the end of the reading for day 75.
An awful heavy reading. The first part we read talked about God blessing people who had faith in him and followed him and obeyed him. And they were blessed in everything. Everything multiplied. Their prosperity multiplied. Their family multiplied. Their crops multiplied. He protected them and they had no diseases. The lengthy next chapter talked about all the bad things that happened to people who did not worship God or who worshiped others that weren't God, or wood or gold or silver.
And he was talking about not only those people then, but people all through the generations.
All forever and ever.
All through. And we see that, like I said earlier, the history of the Jewish people and in the Promised Land, how they were scattered all over the world. And now the exciting thing is they have a Promised Land. They're back in the Promised Land. Mm-hmm. And with much struggle, yes, but they are in the Promised Land. Home. And our prayer for them is that they will obey God. Because when they obey God, they will see all the blessings that he talked about come upon them.
Exactly.
And they will not have to live in fear of their enemies or anything, because God says, "I will defeat their enemies."
Amen.
So
what a wonderful promise.
Our prayer for Israel today is
that they can
turn and obey
God. And obey him. And in the New Testament we see that Jesus is coming up to being tried and falsely accused. And all that was prophesied and had to happen because Jesus came to be the Lamb of lambs, the Redeemer. So thank you for joining us.
He became the sacrifice. All this, in the Old Testament, all these sacrifices that they did was all blood symbols of sin, of the blood covering our sin. And when Jesus died, his blood covered our sin. And we don't have to have these animal sacrifices. And I'm so thankful to the Lord for that.
And so thank you for taking the time to follow along in your word. I pray you are. Thank you for joining us so faithfully. And God willing, we'll be here again tomorrow. And we'll say a prayer of blessing.
And we'd like to hear from you.
Please do. Write your comments. If you scroll down under the video, there's a place there where you can write your comments. We really would appreciate that, or questions. And if you're reading wrong, just let us know and give us a hooray. And if you are reading along, share this these readings and these scriptures with others that may need to, when we email today, my goodness,